A gute Woche. This afternoon, the Rebbe will begin the Farbrengen that this Shabbos is Shabbos Chazoin, and it was already explained at many occasions, Chassidische Taich of Chazoin, that it means Maloshon vision. The famous interpretation of Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev, that this is a Shabbos where we can envision the third Beis HaMikdash. And there's a famous mashal on it, which the Rebbe spoke about later in the Farbrengen, of a father that made a beautiful garment for his child. However, he gave it to his child, but his child did not take care of it properly. So the father gave him afterwards again the garment, the second time. But by the second time the child again did not take care of the garment properly, and the garment again fell apart. Came to the third time, father made up the garment, however did not give it to the child. And from time to time he shows the child from the distance that this is the garment, and when things will be proper, you will be getting the garment. The same Rabbi Yitzchak of Berditchev says relates to Shabbos Chazoin. This is the Shabbos when HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows the third Beis HaMikdash. This third Beis HaMikdash, which will be a much higher level than the first two Batei Mikdash. The first two Batei Mikdash, the Rebbe explained at length, employing the expression kosis. Kosis in Lashon HaKodesh means when something is crushed. The word kosis has the letters of Taf Yud and Taf Chaf, which both of these numbers refer to both Batei Mikdash, the first and the second. The first Beis HaMikdash lasted for Taf Yud years, 410 years. The second Beis HaMikdash lasted for Taf Chaf years, 420 years. But both Batei Mikdash went through kosis. In other words, they were both crushed, they were both destroyed. However, the third Beis HaMikdash will be a permanent Beis HaMikdash. And besides it being permanent, it will supersede in Madrege both of the first Batei Mikdash. Regarding the first two Batei Mikdash, there's discussion that it's brought out in Svarim, that there are advantages in the first Beis HaMikdash, there are advantages in the second Beis HaMikdash, even though the second Beis HaMikdash was lacking certain inyanim which were in the first and they were not in the second Beis HaMikdash. But from the mere fact that the second Beis HaMikdash lasted longer than the first, this in itself is an indication that there was some sort of chshit in the second Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash than the honor of the first Beis HaMikdash. However, when we're talking about the third Beis HaMikdash, the third Beis HaMikdash will be higher in level than both of these Batei Mikdash, than both of these Batei Mikdash that are hinted in the word of kosis and went through the procedure of kosis because they were both crushed, one after 410 years, the other one after 420 years. However, the third Beis HaMikdash will be much higher in Madrege. And this is how the Rebbe referred to it in today's Farbrengen as well as the Farbrengen of last week, that the whole union of Golas and this whole Yerida, the letdown, which we are going through in Golas, is all because of Yerida Tzeirech Aliyah, because ultimately we will come to such high revelations, which will be revealed to us in the third Beis HaMikdash. And it is for this reason we went into Golas. So it is that through the Golas we will be able to be mahapich, we will be able to convert chashoichal and hoira, to convert darkness to light, to lichtigkeit, and merilu lamiska, and bitterness to sweetness. In other words, it is that through this yerida that we will be able to achieve tremendous high elevations and escalations, which will all be revealed to us with the rebuilding of the third Beis HaMikdash. The Chlal is brought out in Svarim, in Chazal, that the concept of Golus is compared to sleep. Ani yishena bigalusa. Chazal say, Pasuk, I am sleeping. When is he in the level of sleeping? In Golus. So here the Rebbe referred to the whole inyan of sleeping in Gashmias. The whole inyan of sleeping in Gashmias is something which requires an explanation. Why is it that the Rebbe created us in such a way that we have to come on to that many hours of sleep? But the Rambam writes, a person has to sleep a certain amount of hours every night, to such an extent that the Gemara says that if a person would take an oath upon himself that he will not sleep for a certain amount of days, his oath has no value, it has no effect, and immediately we force him that he has to go to sleep right away. Though he will not even be able to survive these couple of days without sleep. He will automatically fall asleep. But nonetheless, this oath has no value, and we force him to go to sleep and to be mevatel this shvur which he accepted upon himself. Even though we know that it's brought out in Svarim that during a person's sleep, the neshama goes up l'maylo, and the neshama, that is when the neshama receives its strength and its life. But nonetheless, the Rebbe could have done it another way as well. Just like we know that the Rebbe has created every human being, that we breathe constantly. Chas v'shalom, if a person will not breathe for a while, then his life is in danger. This is how the Rebbe has created him. So the Rebbe, he is the one that creates, and it is within his power to create. So the Rebbe could have created us in such a way and in such a fashion that we should be able to survive without sleep, and not that we should have to give that many hours of our precious time and give it all away for sleep. And it seems that the explanation for this was also along the same lines, that it's yerida tzerech aliyah. It is take yerida, but when a Yid wakes up in the morning, chadoshim lapkorim rabba monasecha. When we wake up in the morning and we wake up with new strength, and we are refreshed, that we can again go and serve the Rebbe anew, and we have all these koiches again. This is the aliyah which we have reached to through the yerida. True taka, the inyan of sleep, the inyan of shinas, and the inyan of yerida. But nonetheless, when we wake up in the morning and we recite the Moedani, and we are thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we can begin our day again, this is the aliyah which comes after the yerida. This also has a shaykhus to this week's Seder. This week's Seder begins with Eila Hadvarim. These are the words that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke. What is the expression of Eila? These. These is, it's compared like the expression of Zeh, Mara, that's boy, V'omer Zeh. This is something we can pinpoint on, we can point. And this shows us what the attitude of the Yid has to be to Torah. The attitude to Torah has to be that we approach it Eila, we are pointing at it. This is something new, as if it's something which we have just received. What do Chazal say? Whenever we learn Torah, we have to view it as something which is new, something which we just received. And this is the way how every Yid has to react to Torah. Though the pasuk says, Eila hadvarim asher diber Moshe, so you know what Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya, that every Yid has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within him. That is regarding when the Torah tells us, V'ata Yisrael ma Hashem elokecha asher yilmiyim v'chkim liyira Yisrael. Now, Yidden, what does the Rebbe ask him? All he's asking is, he's only asking that we should be God-fearing. So the Gemara asks, Otu Yira Milfus Utruseh. The Pasuk says that the Rebbe is asking for something which is only God-fearing. So the Gemara says to be God-fearing, isn't this considered something minute? It's quite a madrega to be in the level of God-fearing. So the Gemara responds, Ein, yes. Lagabi Moshe, when we're talking regarding the level of Moshe, it is considered a Milfus Utruseh, it's considered something small. Asks the Alter Rebbe, but the Pasuk is speaking to each and every Jew, not only to Moshe. So based on this, the Alter Rebbe says that each and every Jew has a spark of the neshama of Moshe Rabbeinu within him. And when we learn Torah, our reaction to Torah has to be Eila Hadvarim. This is something which we are pointing at. When do we point at something? Something which is new, something which we just received, not something which is old, an old decree, something which is fresh and new. We are pointing at it. Eila Devarim, these are the words of Torah which we are just received. And this is the attitude that a Yid has to express the Torah constantly. And at the same time, we know the Gemara tells us that. In what way does a Yid have to learn Torah? Yid has to learn Torah above and beyond the limit of what he's used to. The Gemara explains it. That in those days it was the custom that they would review an Inyan 100 times. Look the Gemara. That if one learns an Inyan 100 times, he's called Lo Yavada. He's not serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu. If he learns it 101 times, that is when he's considered Avada. He is serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because by this one more time that he's adding on, by this time, he's breaking his nature. The nature was for everybody at that time, the custom was that everybody would be learning it 100 times. So if he's learning 100 times, he's not doing anything different than anybody else. However, when he's breaking his nature, he's going above his nature, beyond his nature, and he's learning 101 times, that is the inyan of Yoisa Mirgilusay, more than what he's used to. And when he's doing it more than what he's used to, that is when he's considered an Oived Elokim serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And especially this year, that this is the year of Tafshin Nun. So the learning of Torah has to be in an Oifim of Neis. What is the inyan of Neis? Neis is the inyan of an elevation, a Harame, an Ufheibung, an escalation. So the entire learning of Torah has to be in such a way that we uplift ourselves in the way we are learning Torah to such a level which we were never at before, to such a height which we were never at before. In other words, we go out of our habit completely. And this is what the Avodah V'Yid is for. What's the Avodah V'Yid? What happened by Matan Torah? By Matan Torah, what happened was, before Matan Torah, there was a division between Elyonim and Tachtonim. As Chassidus explains it, what Chazal tell us. What happened by Matan Torah? What happened by Matan Torah was this barrier between Elyonim and Tachtonim was taken away. What is the inyan of Elyonim? Elyon stands for the inyan of Neis, above Teva. What happened by Matan Torah? By Matan Torah, the combination of Elyon and Tachtonim, in other words, an inyan that till now was above Teva, and therefore had no shaykhs to this world. Matan Torah introduced that in Yonim that are higher than Teva and above Teva become tied with Yidden here in this world, and a Yid has the koyach. The Rebbe has given us this koyach that we can reach such heights of learning Torah. We can reach such heights above the realm of nature. We can reach to a level of Elyonim, something which is much higher than Tachtonim, and this is the Madrega Yid can reach to by learning Torah. And everything, our going out of Golus, we're going to continue. And when we will go out of Golus, we will have the Beis HaMikdash. And in the Beis HaMikdash, there are various levels of Kedusha. We go from the Azara to the Ulam, from the Ulam to the Heichel, until ultimately we reach the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And we will have the third Beis HaMikdash. The third Beis HaMikdash will have 2 levels in it. On one hand, it's brought to Svarim that the third Beis HaMikdash is ready. It is ready and complete. And all that has to happen is that the Rebbe should let it down here into this world. That's on one hand. And so that is the part that the Rebbe is investing in the Beis HaMikdash. On the other hand, there's the Avodah V'Yid. The Avodah V'Yid, which we add through our Maisim and through our Avodah, which we add also, which will be part of the third Beis HaMikdash. And the strength from this, where do we have the strength to do this Avodah? The koyach to do this Avodah we have because each and every Yid has a neshama. And the sheresh, the source of the neshama, is very high. The source of the neshama is even higher than Torah. And that is why a Yid has this strength that when he does his Avodah, and the Avodah is done b'teich simcha, b'tuv lavav, especially when his learning Torah is in the way of Adnai Svasei Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilosecha. He feels, what is he saying? He's not saying his own. He's saying the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when a Yid sits and learns Torah, what is the result? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev v'koyre kenegdoi. The Rebishter is koyre v'sheine kenegdoi. As the Rebbe stressed, koyre means mikra, and sheine means mishnah. When a Yid learns Torah, and we're talking about any Yid, men, women, children, doesn't have to be deep in Yonam and Torah. Any Yinyan in Torah gets this response from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even when a little child is learning, what does the child learn? The child learns Kometz Aleph and Kometz Beis, Patach Aleph. So we have to know that the Kometz Aleph that a child is learning, this is the same Kometz Aleph which is Farbrengen and relates to the Kometz Aleph from Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Furthermore, Rabbi brought out, Kometz is Maloshen Kmitza. It's the same concept as Tzimtzum, something which is squeezed together. What is the meaning of Patach? Patach is Maloshen Posach, open, to reveal. First we have the Yerida. The Yerida is a meaning of a Kmitza, it's a Tzimtzum. And as mentioned earlier, this Yerida is Seirech Aliyah. What does it lead to? The Kometz leads to the Patach. Patach is an Indian of Gilui. And as we spoke in previous weeks, regarding the 3 weeks, which normally is referred to as Shloisha de Puranusa, 3 weeks of Puranius, and Puranius means undesirable things. But the Rebbe is teaching Puranius means Maloshen Isperia Kol Nahoiran, it's Maloshen Gilui. On the contrary, it is Dafke through the Yerida that we come to a Gilui, we come to a revelation. To a revelation of Getlachkeit. And how do we come through this? Because prior to that we went through an Inyan of Kmitza, we went through an Inyan of Yerida, and then this leads to the Inyan of Pasach, of Patach, to an Inyan of Gilui. This also has a shaykhus to this week's Seder, as mentioned earlier, the Inyan of Eila Hadvarim Asher Diber Moshe. So what does Rashi tell us? That the undesirable inyanim that Moshe wanted to tell Yidden, this is not mentioned beferish in the pasuk. That's mentioned only in a way of remez. The pasuk only hints to it. Why? Mipnei kvoiden shel Yisrael. Because the covet of Yidden, and this again shows us how great the covet of Yidden is, and how powerful each and every Yid, and what a Yid can accomplish. That all inyanim of this world, everything was given. Why? So that a Yid should be able to accomplish in this world. And accomplish in this world, learn Torah and be Mekayim mitzvahs, and fulfill the Inyan of Yerida Tzorech Aliyah, which just means the Avodah V'Skafia and the Avodah V'Shapcha, where he's utilizing, that he's converting everything which seems to be dark and bitter, and he's converting all of this to illumination and to sweetness. And the continuation goes that from Parshas Devarim we enter Parshas V'Eschanan. What is V'Eschanan? V'Eschanan is an expression of Tefillah. There are many expressions for Tefillah, and V'Eschanan is one of them. And this is an expression of Tefillah which Moshe Rabbeinu used. And Rashi tells us on behalf of Chazal that V'Eschanan is equivalent to Tov Kuf Tesvav, 515. What is the meaning of Tov Kuf Tesvav? So Tesvav relates to Yudke, 15. Same numeric value as the Rebbe's number. What is the Inyan of Tov Kuf? So Tov Kuf we find in Chazal tell us that heavens, Rakia, has a shaykhus with the Inyan of Tov Kuf. That Mahalech, as long as it takes to walk, Ma'aretz Lo Rakia, and from one Rakia to another, is also a number of Tov Kuf Shana, 500 years. What do we say here? That a Yid, through his Avodah, the Shema has such great powers, though we're talking about the Tefillah of whom of Moshe Rabbeinu. But as mentioned earlier, each and every Yid has within him the spark of Moshe Rabbeinu. So each and every Yid can reach to such high level that he comes above the Tov Kuf, higher than all Rekiyim, higher than all heavens. And he becomes Tov Kuf Tesvav. He reaches through the Yudke, through his association with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, can reach higher than all Tov Kufs, higher than all heaven. He the Rebbe concluded the Sikha that from talking about all this, it should become a reality that take it from Yad Mamish, we should have the coming of Mashiach, and right away, even in this Shabbos, especially that there are already Piski Dinim of Rabbanim, which Rabbanim Paskin, that Mashiach has to come, and before the coming of Mashiach, there's a requirement for tshuva. So tshuva was already also done, and as we all know the famous expression of the Frierdiker Rebbe, la'alto l'tshuva, la'alto l'gula. As soon as tshuva is done, this will lead to Geula. So it's already the furthest point that we should have Geula and Geula. In what way? In a way like we discussed earlier, Eila hadvarim. What is the meaning of Eila? We point at it. We point at it. We can point at it and say, here it is. So the same way we should be able to point, here is Mashiach, and here is the Beis HaMikdash. And we had already enough undesirable things in our generation so that we shall come directly to Geula and be able to pinpoint at the Beis HaMikdash and at Mashiach and at all the inyanim that come with it. In this Sikha also, the Rebbe referred touched up the inyan of Shabbos. Shabbos is a level when a Yid is at a very high madrega, and the same thing, the period, the coming of Mashiach, will also be compared to Shabbos. Yom shekuloi Shabbos u'menucha l'chayei elamim, as we say. How do we have the strength to be able to reach to such a madrega? So the Mishnah tells us at the beginning of Masechta Shabbos, Yitzias HaShabbos. How do we come to Shabbos? Yitzia. We have to go out. If we go out, in other words, if we go out from the Reshus HaYochid and we reach out into the Reshus HaRabim, and then we are successful again to bring back from the Reshus HaRabim into the Reshus HaYochid. In other words, explain the Chassidus at length. Reshus HaYochid means an area where it is felt the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yochid, how the Rebbeishter is single, one and only, Yechidei Shalaylam. What is the meaning of Reshus HaRabim? Reshus HaRabim, as Chassidus uses the expression quoted from the Zoya, Ture de Proide. There are mountains of separation. It's open for everybody. It's a meaning of Klippen. What is the Aveda V'Yid? The Aveda V'Yid is to reach out. Yid belongs in Reshus HaYochid. That's where the place of the Yid is. So we say, what does the first Mishnah in Shabbos discuss? How a Yid sticks his hand out and he reaches out from Reshus HaYochid into Reshus HaRabim, or from Reshus HaRabim into Reshus HaYochid. And this is in Ruchni is what it means, that our Avodah is to reach out to Reshus HaRabim, to bring Getlachkeit to Reshus HaRabim, to introduce the concept of Reshus HaYochid into Reshus HaRabim. Again, on the other hand, we are responsible to reach out to those who are in Reshus HaRabim and bring them back into Reshus HaYochid. And as the Mishnah uses the expression, Poshat Balabayis es Yodoi, the Balabas stretches out his hand. Because what does that mean? That the Rebbeishter has given a Yid a koyach, that a Yid is a Balabas on the entire world. And therefore, being a Balabas on the entire world, he has this power to be able to accomplish this. And by doing this, this is how we are preparing the world for the real level of Shabbos. And when we mean the real level of Shabbos, it means that the period when Mashiach will come, then the entire world will be at a level of Shabbos. Yom shekulei Shabbos u'menucha l'chayei elamim. As we say in benching of Shabbos, we mentioned it last week. How do we say it? The meals when we wash on Shabbos? Harachman hu yanchileinu l'yom shekulei Shabbos u'menucha l'chayei elamim. When is that Yom shekulei Shabbos u'menucha? That will be when Mashiach will come. Rabbi continued, Bichlal, a lesson which we derive from Shabbos is the specialty of Eichus. There is Kamus and Eichus, which means, Kamus usually translated that it means quantity, Eichus means quality. What does Bichlal Shabbos show a Yid? Shabbos shows us that we have to realize and understand the importance of eichus, the importance of quality. even though we went through an entire week. During the week there was Take creation, and the creation Take was stamped by the Rebishter that it is Toiv, and for every day in the week we have a Toiv, and the day that we don't have, we have the next day a double Toiv. Take Alten in everything which came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even in Yonim which are many in quantity, which this is expressed, Ma'arabu Ma'asecha Hashem, how many are your creations, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What's still the creations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And at the same time, there's an union of Ma'godlu Ma'asecha Hashem, the great creations which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created, where there we do not find the emphasis on quantity, there's an emphasis on greatness, in other words on quality. There are not that many, but they're each and every one outstanding. But the goal of the many quantity is, of the much quantity is to reach to a level of quality. Just like we find Chazal tell us that a person was created. Why was Adam created last? So that when he's created, he shall be able to find everything, Hakul Muchal L'Suda, everything shall be ready for him. And this is the emphasis which we take from Shabbos. We take from Shabbos this specialty, the specialty of Eichos. Shabbos, in regard to the rest of the week, Shabbos is the day of quality. The rest of the week, there are many more days than Shabbos. So Shabbos is really, on a quantity level, Shabbos is one day against the entire week. But Shabbos has this specialty of the quality of Shabbos. And this is what we take with us, how we have to, the goal of a Yid is Yelcho Mechayel Ochoyel, to constantly go from level to level. And specialty how dear every Yid is. Every Yid is considered like a Ben Yochid that was born at a late age to his parents. This is how dear each and every Yid is by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And ultimately, through our Aveda, in this stage of Aveda, the Aveda of revealing the greatness of quality which each and every Yid can reach to. This will take us out of Golas, and the Rebbe will give us the third base Hamikdash, and there we will have the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And in the Kodesh HaKadoshim we will have the first set of luchas, and the second set of luchas, and everything will be in a way of Yosef and Yitzchak, as the Rebbe keeps on stressing, which is the name of the Friedrich Rebbe. Yosef is the idea of adding on, to increase, to constantly increase in Avedas Hashem. And as the Rebbe always brings the taich, Yosef Hashem li bein acher, that our Aveda is to reach out to those that are still on a level of acher, they are considered outsiders. And nonetheless we reach out to them and they too become banim la'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And at the same time all of this is done amidst an expression of Yitzchak. What's the idea of Yitzchak? Yitzchak is Moloshn Tzchoik, laughter. What is the Indian of laughter? Simcha. And then we have, like we mentioned earlier, the Indian of Shabbos Chazoin. But not only that the father shows the child the garment and shows it to him from a distance, but he gives it to him and gives it in a way that it becomes close. Not only it's a hamshacha, it's a revelation from distance, but it becomes a hamshacha in a way of pnimius. And how does this happen? By the Rebbe sending us Mashiach and giving us the third Beis Hamikdash. The Rebbe again brought to our attention that the 9 days should be utilized for making siyumim ha-mesechtes. And though regularly we make a siyum on a mesechta which has Gemara, but there is the special Masechta of Masechta Midos, which even though it does not have any Gemara, it's only Masechta which is Mishnah, but nonetheless it's something which is suitable to learn these days because it deals with the Inyanim of the Beis Hamikdash. And the same thing, Masechta Tamid also is a Masechta which relates to the schedule, to the routine, daily routine which happened in the Beis Hamikdash. But regardless, whether it's on these Masechtas or on other Masechtas, but the main thing is that we should utilize the remainder of the 9 days to make a siyum every day, and especially, and regarding Erev Tisha B'Av and Tisha B'Av, there is also in Yonim and Torah which we are permitted to learn in those days which we can make a siyum on them. Agut Tavach, and let it be Hayomim Ha'elu Yahavchu L'Sasin L'Simcha L'Mayadim Teirim.